Yo, what is good, everybody? I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. The market is kind of going a little haywire right now, and I'm really just going to tell you guys everything you need to know for the next few weeks. There really is not too much to it, so make sure to stick around and watch the whole video through. I got some interesting things to talk about. So with all that being said, let's get into it. Make sure to share the video some love, give it a like and subscribe, and let's get into it. So to start off, of course, we've got oil here. So oil has been following the projected path since last week, since we topped out for the time being. Um, we talked about how this range really it cannot get past this just because it is such a massive resistance and you can't move this far up without any like sustainable pullbacks. Let me make my picture a little smaller. So you can't go this high into this big of a resistance and expect to blow through. That's just not how the market works. It just doesn't happen like that. So we were looking for that pullback to the 50% to the golden pockets or anywhere in this range, and so far we have hit the 50% at least. 50% of this move, so halfway back of the original move. That's just how the waves work. Elliott waves. So we're assuming that this is a completed 5 waves up, which I do think it is. So now we're looking for that pullback, and then ultimately higher, which is kind of interesting. I think it's kind of a race against time though, because if the economy goes into the recession, the demand for oil is just going to absolutely collapse, and that's going to bring down the price of oil. So it's a really interesting spot, but what you would expect here is, I think it's what I would be looking at is having a bullish bias, um, with continued upside, because what this would be, is this is wave 2, or maybe even like wave B potentially. So I'm just going to draw out the path. So somewhere in this region, and then you go higher, and then maybe another pullback, and then for that final wave, or this is some sort of massive correction, A, B, C. So I think I would want to have a bullish bias, looking for that kind of move back, especially above that 84 to like 80, this region. Once you get over that, I think it's clear skies. It can easily push over 100. But for the time being, what the question you should be asking is this done correcting already, or does it need to go a little lower towards 71? And from there, I think there should be, continuation to the upside, but it's important to really keep an eye on that wave structure and make sure that it's still only 3 waves down rather than like 5 waves down. So far, this I think would be, 3 waves down if it just goes straight down from here. So we will be monitoring that wave structure to see how it follows through. Natural gas, very interesting. Not really that much to say here. This is kind of this important range here where we were looking to get over, and it did manage to do that. And then this absolutely insane volume candle I found kind of interesting, because I mean, you got an insane spike, but then immediately came back down. So there is a gap to fill, which, natural gas really likes to fill its gaps right away. But I think this was a contract expiration date, and the contract got rolled, so that does kind of like, it usually gives a little gap in the price. So that should be interesting to see kind of how the price interacts around this gap. But I think I would probably be looking for that to get filled before it does anything else. And this gap I don't think is completely filled either. So these are the 2 gaps I would be looking at right now. Other than that, it's hard to read right now. It's not really doing too much. So we're just going to kind of see what it does with these gaps. And of course, we would want to see it hold on top of this range. So potentially we get something like a bounce and then higher. But this gap, natural gas really likes to fill its gap. So I wouldn't be surprised if it really just kind of prioritizes getting back down there to fill that gap. US dollar, we talked about how it's going to break out of the channel. That's just it. That would happen. That's just how it works. You can't trade in a channel forever. So it did this kind of like awkward drift outside of the channel, hit it twice, and now it's bouncing, but it's definitely having trouble here. Now you might have some sort of inverse head, like a slanted inverse head and shoulders, before you move up to. If we start moving up, I would definitely be looking at conservatively 103, like 70s, right? Just this area, to kind of test liquidity up here. And other than that, I'm not really sure how high it would want to go if it wants to go higher. So, uh, right now it's doing the channel break. There's a lot of resistance right around this region. So if it can get above this, I would probably be expecting more upside. Apple, very interesting. So if you remember when we were all the way back down here, we were talking about this gap getting filled, which got filled, and then I was like, okay, I don't really see any more incentive for it to go higher. But then I was looking for that possibility, and there were still gaps, and I actually just saw this. It's kind of hidden by this trend line. I don't know if that gap is filled. Doesn't look like it. So there's a gap there, and if you remember, we were looking at that Fibonacci extension measurement. So you draw it from the bottom to that next peak to the next low, and it's really, really likely that it wants to get to that 100% extension to make this wave equal to this wave. So this is really just a big ABC here. At least this is what I'm tracking. So if it gets up to 177, that would make this wave equal in length to that A wave. So it's starting to take a little long. Now you really, the more harmony and symmetry between the waves that you can find, the better. Like, if the C wave is like this, that it just doesn't look right. That's just not, it doesn't look right. But if it's pretty symmetrical in the degree of the move and the length and distance, then that would make it look correct. So I would probably, if it wants to fulfill this, I would want to see it get to like 177 relatively quickly, just to kind of satisfy that harmony and symmetry of these wavelengths. Other than that, you got this gap here, you got that gap here, and we've been looking for the mid 170s for, I would say, since definitely the last video, maybe that video 2 weeks back. So interesting spot on Apple. This thing is going to fall so hard when it does. It's starting to form gigantic divergences on the 4-hour. Same thing on the daily. Those are really big divergences. So, yeah, it's not, this is definitely not sustainable. It's going to come down at some point, but it's better safe than sorry to probably be waiting a little bit longer. You're hitting that trend line once again, but, yeah, you just need to be patient with these right now. So many people are shorting. I showed you kind of like that metric of how many people are short in the market right now, and it's higher than it's ever been since 2011. So it's been over a decade since this many people in the market have been short, and as a result, the market just cannot fall. It's not able to. We've all been seeing how the market has been for the past few weeks. So on to Tesla, we had that target for that gap fill, and we did not completely fill that gap, but we're kind of getting there, and there were a couple ways we were looking for this measured move down. Once we got up to here, we were looking for a massive pullback back down towards 150, 160, and we actually got into the 150. So I was looking for a little lower, and I think I still am. Now, the reasons for that being are, I want that golden pocket to get hit. This region right here, we hit the 50%, but I would like to see that golden pocket get hit, which also would fill that gap. And another way I would be measuring this is just with what we looked on Apple, that fib extension measurement. We've actually already hit the 100% extension, so you can see that 154, we went a little bit under it and bounced. So technically, if it's corrected enough, it has the ABC structure, it's fulfilled the C wave length, so it could be ready to go up, but there's that gap there, so it's a little conflicting. This is the 4-hour, the MACD is starting to turn bullish again, so there's no bullish divergences, but I would want to be looking at this resistance, so a couple more days, maybe tomorrow, probably a couple more days for this to kind of build out a little more and test that resistance. But if it breaks through it, you're definitely going to see some bullish energy and momentum. Amazon, so really interesting. We were I've been sort of looking for that move up to 140, but it's not looking that strong. So that's where I'm sort of changing my mind here. On the daily, the MACD is not looking that strong. And we also are just kind of falling out of this channel or like this flag we're in. So I might be reevaluating here, and it just might need to level out a bit. It might need to come back and hit this line. So we're going to take a look at extended hours, so you might need to see something like this come back and hit that trend line support, or what used to be a resistance. So we definitely broke out of it, and now we just kind of see how it needs to interact with it. So I think that's probably what's going to happen. And I'm also going to guess it's probably right at that volume zone. Yep. So this is going to be a demand zone that's going to get tested as well. So it's going to kind of intersect where this demand zone, this volume node is, as well as that trend line. So buyers could definitely come in and step in here and take it higher. And then of course, if it can get above the big level is that 124 region. Above that, it's a straight shot to the 140s pretty much. But we'll see what it needs to just do for the next few days, if it wants to come lower. But we're gonna take a quick look at extended hours, and it did this absurd move, but came right back down. So kind of weird. I'm not really sure what to think about this. I don't think there really is anything to say about this, but that's just not really something you want to see as a bull. So yeah, we'll see what it wants to do. It's breaking down a little bit. I would probably expect a little more downside at this rate, just to kind of test what the bulls want to do if they can hold this line. Now Microsoft. So I'm only talking about this because it's such a clear wedge here, and also this is the only one that I kind of feel like, not the only one, but this will definitely make shorts a lot of money once it falls. I can easily, without a doubt, see this coming all the way back down to 260, and that's a decent drop, I guess, but it might manage to get it a little lower. I think the big level to watch would be 250. That's also 250, 245. These lows right here. It's also kind of acted as a pivot, if you can see that. We shot above it, we tested that, broke above it, and then came back below it. You can see it held as resistance, so that's definitely a big region to be watching. But right now we're filling this gap. There are no gaps above it. There's this region that I might want to get tested for liquidity, but other than that, it's just the gap. So I was talking about this in last week's video, I think. I did not really think it would fill this fast. We had this really hard breakdown, and this was also something I was saying about how, so we're just going to rewind quick and kind of look at it as if it's like last week. So we're gonna go back to, I believe we were somewhere around here, and I was saying I don't like drawing this bottom line like this because there's so many things it can do before going to this line. Like it can go straight down and then bounce, or it can drift sideways into the line, which that usually doesn't happen. It usually does something in this region. So you usually, if there's room to the next line, you usually don't just see flat. That doesn't happen. It's usually test support, a big bounce, or you hit this line again. So now we have moved up into those gaps. We trapped a lot of people here, and we gapped above the line, but this will not, it's not going to hold. It's going to get obliterated at some point, and I'm not sure how soon that will be. We have the Fed meeting on Wednesday, so that could really act as a kind of like a pivot for the market right now and send it down, but it's always best to kind of react rather than try to predict it. So we'll kind of have to see how that meeting goes. So that's really it for Microsoft. Just really watching what it does round two. That final gap is getting filled, so that's just something big to note. And on the daily, just looking at that MACD, there's still a bearish divergence. So I think that's a triple bearish divergence, very slight. I don't know, but you can see this here. You got a lower high while the price made that higher high. So that's a bearish divergence. Biotech, we said this gap is going to get filled. Right here, that gap got filled, and we said we'll have to see what it does afterwards. I was looking for that 15% move. We got the 15% move. We came back up, hit that resistance. So Biotech has not done anything surprising. It's done everything we said it would do. So again, now that we're testing this resistance, I don't think there's any gaps below. So potentially it really could move up. You got an area of illiquidity right here and right around here. So you could see some continued moving up, and it would be awesome if we start trading in that range again, because that was such an easy range to trade. So if that happens, that would be a blessing, and make sure to take the opportunity to trade this range, because these moves are not small. This, like, from the bottom to the top of the range is like 30-40%, and it just goes back and forth. So if it does that again, you really don't want to sleep on it. There's a lot of money to be made in that range. So we'll see what it does around this resistance. If it comes back down, or if it kind of breaks back up, we just got to see what it does at this resistance. Yeah, this is Biotech. Everything I said in there applies to that. So semiconductors, we broke down. We just filled this gap, and then you can see we got a really nice wick hammer candle, came back up, filled this gap. So I don't see any other gaps above. Maybe it starts continuing down. This is definitely a good area to wait. You're also kind of testing this big downturn resistance, sort of. So I'm not exactly a fan of. So I would like this to continue dropping so that SOXS can go higher. Because this is what I was looking for back here. I was looking for that big breakup. We got it, and then it came back down, and I was testing that region. So if it can hold it, you can go higher. So with this one, I don't really like how it's trying to break this line, like it's trying to break out. So we'll just kind of have to see how it goes. It's a pretty big spot for the semiconductors. Nvidia, AMD. Well, Nvidia's been kind of moving on its own. I think AMD actually has been falling. Yeah, so kind of interesting. AMD has been falling, but Nvidia just doesn't stop. It's unbelievable. It does not stop. So it's doing its thing. Did we break that high? Yeah, we kind of did, but that is a massive top. I don't know if that the market just doesn't work like that. Insane divergences. I mean, it's been falling off a cliff. I don't know. This is wild. So many people have been trying to short this into the ground, and as a result, it's kind of just giving that reverse effect. So we'll see if it double tops here or not. But anyways, going back to SOXS, we just kind of got to see what it does at that region. Let me zoom back in real quick. So we'll just have to see what it does here. That's really all I can say. If it holds it and continues higher, or if it breaks under and then just falls back down, we'll see. So yeah, semiconductors came down and tested this line, which I did not expect that to happen this quickly. And again, it went into that range we were talking about. If it gets underneath this region, there is nothing but downside. It will fall a lot. But here, again, testing these resistances, so you could see yet again another move up. The VIX acting really weird. We got that big spike up back above that trend line, and then immediately shot back down, which, I mean, it's so erratic. The market in general is so erratic right now. It's really difficult to read and trade. It's just been this slow melt up with no pullbacks, but which is what we're going to talk about right now. So yeah, so this was the drop we were looking for. Looking at futures, we were talking about 4080, and I said, well, the first level I was talking about was 4010, or 4100, and really the big level to be watching is that 4080 level, which we hit, held, and bounced right back up to the top of the channel. So there's no direction until we break out one way or the other, and it is such a pain because I can't really tell you what it's gonna do. I mean, it looks so bearish. It's not sustainable at all. But on the other hand, you have so many people shorting, which as a result can spark these enormous short squeezes. And the fact that there's like more people shorting right now than ever since 2011, I mean, that really goes to show how many people are shorting right now. There are a lot of people shorting. So it's really hard to say what it wants to do right now. It's in this range. There's no direction. Although I think this is going to be the next big trend line to watch. So maybe we see something like comes back and tests this, bounces, but it'll be really interesting if it kind of rides this up, because that will be an easy short. It will definitely fall. I can easily see it coming back down to like 40-30, which on SPY that's like there's a gap though, so that's like 396. So it's so unsustainable, but there's so many people shorting, so it definitely has a reason to keep moving up. But again, it's all over the place. You got the VIX doing all this weird stuff. You got Apple that might need a little more upside. You got Tesla that might continue rocketing. Microsoft might be about to top. Everything is normally you kind of see everything in the same scenario. Like you would see Apple topping at the same time, Amazon topping at the same time, but everything is in a different spot. It's really, really awkward. It's really awkward. So yeah, you got Apple that's going to die at some point. Tesla, it might start running higher, like towards 260. That's what we talked about in last week's video. Amazon, not really sure what it's doing. Microsoft might top here. So again, I just said that, but it's a really, really tricky market to read right now, and that's just me being honest. You gotta know when it's. I'm assuming some of you watch Ron Walker, and I don't watch him. I can't stand his videos. He talks for like 40 minutes saying the same thing over and over and over, but he's been calling for a crash for how long? And it's not crashing. And normally I would say I would expect a crash, but there's just so many people shorting. So that's the reason I don't want to say I expect a crash right now. Not saying that I don't think it will crash, because it's really unsustainable, but there's just so many shorts. So I think that's where I'm going to leave this video. Until we break out of this range, there is no direction. It's just sideways. So if you watched the whole thing through, make sure to show the video some love. Please subscribe. Let's get, we're almost at 1,000. That's a big milestone. So we'll get there soon enough, but make sure to show the video some love, give it a like and subscribe, and peace out, guys.